Present about something I am very passionate about, and I'm thrilled by your music and your meditation that you had, because it's all about the children, and that is what I am all about, is children. So my talk today is about the least of these, and I think it's a universal language to say that we all think children are important to our future. And they're also very important to us right now because they are our future. And I think we can all agree on how special children are. So I understand that y'all have had somebody come to speak about CASA before. And so I'm not gonna talk about all of the particulars, but more about who CASA is and what CASA does. So, the next slide. Thank you. So, who are the least of these? What do they look like? Are they people in faraway lands? Are they on the other side of town? Or are they in our own backyard? The children that CASA represents are everywhere. And sometimes we fool ourselves into thinking that abuse and neglect does not happen in our own backyard. And it does. Sadly, it does. And because of that, it makes us feel a little uncomfortable. But they look just like these children, or maybe your next door neighbor. We don't know, next slide, where the least of these children are. And I'm sorry that that's kind of small, but I'll read it to you. CASA of the Coastal Bend serves 3 counties: Nueces, San Pat, and Aransas. San Pat is around the Sinton area. Aransas is around Rockport, and obviously y'all know where Nueces County is. So it's a pretty big area, and there are lots of children in that area. The number of children who were alleged victims is pretty profound. Aransas County had 813. Nueces County had 4,631. Can I say that again? 4,631 alleged victims. And San Patricio County had 980. That's a lot of children. Alleged victims are those that somebody made a call because they thought something wasn't right. They called the hotline and said, I think somebody is abusing this child or neglecting this child. Can you check it out? And that's what they did. The department, CPS, and many of you have heard, if you ask somebody about CPS, they say, oh, they come and take your children away for no reason. They don't want our children. Not that they don't care about them, but they think that they belong with their families and that they should be cared for by their families. But when they cannot do that is when the department comes in and takes them away. So when they get these calls for these 813 or 4,631 or 980 children, they go out and they investigate and they see what is going on. Sometimes families are just struggling. Anybody struggled? Yes. Sometimes they need just a little bit of assistance, and they offer them that assistance. Sometimes it's with utilities, sometimes it's a place to live, sometimes it's transportation. They try to remedy the situation that could lead to their children being removed. The confirmed victims, if you notice, are smaller. 121, 164 and 181. Those were the children that the department had to remove because they were not able to help the family achieve the goal of staying together. It's a big difference. But thankfully, there is a community who says, I think something's going on. Can you please check it out? And they do. Because abuse and neglect doesn't happen to just, I don't know, somebody. It happens all over. So my statement says, abuse is not prejudiced. Abuse does not care how much money you have. Abuse does not care what color your skin is. Lots of times we think it's just poor black people that are abused and neglected, and it isn't. Abuse does not care where you live. Abuse does not care how educated you are. Abuse does not care at all. It affects all of us in some form or fashion, whether we have it occur in our own extended family, or whether it's the neighbor, or it's somebody at school or somebody at work. We are all affected by it, and it's not something that we should neglect. Next slide. So what kind of abuse and neglect is there? Well, sometimes we use that term together, abuse and neglect, but it's actually two very distinct things. There is physical abuse, there is sexual abuse, and there is emotional abuse, and all three of those things are an act of commission. Commission means somebody is doing something to someone. Neglect is an act of omission. That means that they are not providing for someone, whether that's their education or meals or medical or their spiritual needs. And so it is two different things, but one thing we know for sure is emotional abuse happens in all of it. And can y'all see emotional abuse? It's not easily apparent. Can you see physical abuse? You'll see the bruise, right? And that bruise will go away. But does the emotional abuse, those internal scars? No. That is the part that compels me to be a CASA volunteer. And it is something that originally I had no idea what it was. I just knew you were going to advocate for children. Well, what's that? What's advocate for children? I had no idea. I just knew I loved children and that I wanted to do something to help them. Do we all love children? We love them for being human beings. We may not love their behavior sometimes, right? We can distinguish between that because even my own CASA children, that's what we call them, our CASA children can get on my nerves, but I still love them. So that's a distinction. Next slide. So we know that they're out there and they need some help. They need somebody to speak up for them. And we wonder, who are these people who can speak up? I do not have any kind of special skills. I have a heart for children, and I want to do something. My training gives me some knowledge and tools to use in advocating for these children, but I'm just an average person. I don't have any special school degree or anything. Actually, I have a degree in fashion merchandising and design. Hello. I can dress the kids real nice. But other than that, I really don't have that kind of special skill. I tell people it's not hard work to be an advocate. It's heart work. And I am a crybaby. I cry at all the movies, Bambi, you name it, I cry. And I cry for my CASA children. But it also gives me the power to speak up for them on their behalf because their voices are so little. And they try, and they can't. So I am there to be their voice. And we advocate for the whole child. They are universally loved, and we advocate for that. We advocate for their education. We advocate for their medical and their physical well-being. We advocate for their connection to their family. We advocate for their spiritual needs because that is who makes up a whole child. And if we don't do something about it, we are leaving that next generation with children that have, anybody want to name any kind of diagnosis? Bipolar, schizophrenic, you name it. These children are going to have that. And we're leaving the next generation to have to deal with that when we actually could be doing something about it. So it says everyday people who have the compassion to make a difference in the life of a child. As a CASA volunteer, we are only appointed to the case for about a year to 18 months. That's a little bit of time in a whole child's life. But guess what? It is huge for these children. Because as a CASA volunteer, you are that one consistent person in their life and the multitude of times and people that come in and out of their life. They move a ton of times. And that means they go to different schools. That means that there are different foster parents, different therapists, different doctors, different teachers, different caseworkers. Who's going to know where they are? Their CASA volunteer. Because their CASA volunteer follows them wherever they go. And they try to minimize the number of times that they're moved, but not every place is a good place for these children. And if they don't have somebody speaking up for them, they're going to linger there. And they're not going to have their needs met. And I don't know about you, but if that was my own child, I would be a squeaky wheel. You would find me advocating for my own children the same way that I advocate for these CASA children. Next slide. So where is God in the life of the least of these? Well, in each and every one of us. I am a servant first and foremost. And in my servant responsibility, I just happen to be one who serves children. I think that there needs to be a CASA program for the elderly, and when I retire, I'm going to start that too, because the elderly need advocates as well. I see that through my mother and my father. So I think as a community, as people who love and justice, they go hand in hand, don't they? And a prayer, you said service is prayer. Well, we can pray for these children, and that service belongs to each and every one of us. To stand up, to say, I am here because I love, and I can do that. It's not hard work, it's heart work. And I challenge you to think about becoming a CASA volunteer. I have some brochures out on the table when you leave today, and just kind of put it out there and ponder it. It took me 2 months to fill out my application. Not that it was that long, but because I prayerfully thought about it, I just knew I wanted to help a child, and if this way was going to help a child, I'll do it. We say one child at a time. It's one family at a time. And when we help a child, we help their family. Our goal is to try to get them back with their family. And if that's not the case, we cry. And then we advocate to find them some permanency so they don't linger in foster care. That's not permanency. And sometimes it's not a good place. just ask a foster child. They'll tell you. That's the heartbreaking part. That's the part that makes me cry. It's because we're supposed to be helping them. They didn't ask to get abused or neglected, did they? Anybody raise their hand and say, abuse me? No. And so because of their circumstances, they get removed from the only place they've ever known. How is that? What's wrong with that? I had a little girl tell me, tell my parents to go to foster care. I want to stay here in my own house. Absolutely. Absolutely. Profound, right? That's what they need. So if CASA volunteering isn't for you, you may know of someone, and I encourage you to tell them to give us a call and to come and see us and talk to us, because you'll make a huge impact. And what's even better is that I am a better person because of the children who have made up the puzzle of the life of who I am. All 45. I can't wait to serve 50 or 100, however many years they'll let me be a volunteer, because that makes up who I am. So if you're interested, you can fill out this little form, but there's other little swag, and there's even a pencil. Who uses a pencil anymore, right? But what's so cool about this pencil is it changes colors. And because it changes colors, it'll remind you that CASA changes children's lives. Thank you.